Hello, it's Helen from Journal with Purpose and welcome to my latest video. Today I'm going to be doing some creative journaling and I'm going to be doing that inside this A5 dotted notebook from London Gifties. And this is the book that I tend to turn to if I'm wanting to do something, say, a bit more creative, but I've also got lots on my mind that I want to get out onto paper. So I use all sorts of different mediums and techniques in here. And the paper in this journal is really thick, so it holds up to lots of things incredibly well. Now I know Christine's shop, London Gifties, is closed at the moment, but if you've got something like an Archer and Olive book or something like that, that would be great. I'm only saying that because I'm going to add some watercolour onto mine, but if you'd rather just use pencils or pens, then any kind of journal is going to be fine. So what I thought I would do today, I had some really lovely feedback from you on the last video from lots of you on doing the different layouts and doodles. So in my new book, on page 27, I've got this layout here. And in this book I actually created this as a future log, so I've put the different months across the top and perhaps the main things that were coming up during those months or things I needed to get completed, and I added a really simple design along the bottom. So I'm not going to create a future log today, but I wanted to take inspiration from that for adding a lovely frame. So in my first book, which is the ones with kind of all the doodles and designs, I thought I might do, well, certainly I'm going to have a go, start with this flower, and we'll see whether we want to add anything else on, because there's also lots of different leaves, and in the nature section is where I'd used that design for the layout in my new book. So I just thought it'd be fun to keep taking bits from both books and combining them together, but perhaps into something a little bit different. So the pens that I'm going to use for this are going to be my Sakura Pigma Micron pens, and these are waterproof, so I know that I'll be fine to add watercolour over the top. But if you're not using watercolour, that really doesn't matter. You could just use something like a gel pen or any black pen that you have. And I'm going to use the 01 nib. So these flowers are really simple to create, but I think that they give a really beautiful look to your journal pages, particularly if you repeat a few of them and then add some colour. So I'm going to start off by creating the circle in the centre, and I'm going to do this just adding lots of curved lines. So I'm going to work roughly in a circle, and you can see that's all I'm doing is just lots of little curved lines, and that's to kind of give the feel of kind of the seeds in the centre of the flower. And once I've got that, I'm just going to fill in some more details to make it a little bit darker. So again, just adding lots of little curved lines. And now I'm going to start adding some long lines coming out of this flower. I'm going to do probably 8 lines, I think. And I'm trying to make these roughly equal in length, but you certainly don't have to be precise with this. And then I'm going to add a little circle, like a little black dot on the end of each of them. And then I'm going to start adding some little strands coming out of the side. So you've got 2 little lines there, 1 up through the middle, and then 2 either side. So I've just got 5 lines coming out of there. And if you wanted to, you could definitely use a finer pen for this, but I don't really think there's any need to. I'm just using the pen a lot more lightly on my page. I'm hoping that I've managed to, that the green, I've got some green paint under my nails, which I can't get out from when I created these pages yesterday doing acrylic paint. And I'm having such a job getting it all out from underneath my nails. So now we've got the shape of the flower, I'm going to do exactly the same thing again, but in the centre, in between the two of the long lines, I'm going to do the same thing again, but just with a shorter one. And so again, I'm going to do this all the way around. And now to finish this off, we're just going to add lots of really light flicks, doing them with a little bit of variety in their height. So just nice and loose, flicking them all out from the centre of that flower head. I love having kind of certain flower designs that I know I'm going to be able to do with kind of no stress or worries. You don't need to concentrate too much with a design like this, but you can pick and play with the colours that you use to really kind of change it up every time you do it. So depending on what season you're in or your favourite colours, you can just play around with this so it looks different each time you do it. So then the very final thing I'm going to do is add a stem coming up, and I'm going to do something quite nice and thin. And I think what I might do is then add another one perhaps a bit lower here, and then another one over in the centre of this page. Okay, now that we've got the 3 flowers done, I think I'm going to add some of these kind of grass shapes and then also some of these as well, so that we've got a variety of designs across the bottom of our page. So I'm going to start off, I think, with some grass, because then I can put the other designs around it. So really simple for this. Just lots of kind of triangles, but with the curved triangles, but with the bottom bit missing. So again, nice and easy. It's one of the things I look for with my journaling, is always easy designs that are going to instantly take away any fear that I might have of that blank page, because I still think it's quite intimidating to sit and think about what to write to fill a whole page. Sometimes I've got loads that I want to write, but other times I really do just want some space to be able to write in, but not nearly as much as you get on these full pages. So I'm going to add, I think, some more along here. But simple doodles, I think, is a really fun way to go as well. going to add some final ones, I think, just coming off the side of the page here. I loved all of the feedback, thank you, last time, and I had people sharing their pages with me both on Instagram. I had a couple of people email me saying that they finally felt confident to do something a bit creative, and I'm just so happy to hear that. Okay, now I've got my leaves. I think I'm going to add those other designs so they perhaps come up to the midway point. But so for these, I just start off with lots of wiggly lines and I let them all cross over each other. And then we're going to add some taller ones coming up for us to add our kind of flower heads on. So I'm going to add 3 longer ones. And for these, really simple, you just want to be moving your pen back and forth, almost scribbling, and you just bring it up into a kind of cone shape at the top. So nice and loose. Again, really quick to do, but I quite like adding something black and bold. It really helps it your whole design kind of stand out. And once I've got the height of these and they're in place, I'm going to add some different strands coming up just for a bit of variety in the length of those. So I've got some shorter and some coming up a little bit longer. And I'm going to use that same design now to fill in all of the gaps. Okay, so that is now all of the inking done. You could definitely just leave it in black and white if you like, but I'm going to grab my watercolour paint. The paints that I'm going to use are my Kuretake Gansai Tambi set, and I think I'm going to go for some different shades of blue in my flowers. So I think I might start off with a nice pale blue, and I want to work a little bit with a wet on wet technique so that we've got a deeper blue then kind of melting into the middle of it. So I'm going to mix the two colours, the different shades of blue that I'm going to want up first. I've had a few people asking for watercolour tutorials, and this is by no means a watercolour tutorial. This is just going to be having a bit of fun with paints in a no pressure way. We're not going to be doing anything precise or technical on this, but we are just going to be watching kind of our paints bleed together. So I'm going for this, I think, more kind of turquoisey blue for the centre of my flower. And if I'm doing wet on wet, then I try and make sure that I've got enough of both of the colours in advance, because that's just going to help a lot with making sure that the two different colours bleed beautifully together. So really nice and simple. I'm going to pick up some of that light blue watercolour and I'm going to put it all over, kind of right up to where, just past the edge of those middle seeds. And I'm doing it in a kind of stroking motion because I don't want a perfectly round outside. And now that I've got that, I'm going to drop a little bit of that turquoise blue right into the centre. I'm just going to let that bleed out and go in any direction that it wants. You can always add another couple of drops if you like, but I'm going to leave that for now and just let it do its own thing. And I'm going to do exactly the same over here. And sometimes I will come and add a little bit more of controlled paint on top once it's dry. I'll wait and see how I feel once I've seen kind of how that paint has settled. And because my pages are lifting up, you can see it's all running over to one side. So that might be where I'll come and put some in to balance it out in a bit. I imagine it will stay more central on this one because this page is flat. So again, just kind of doing a jagged motion around the outside so I don't have anything too flat. And drop that in the centre. And as you can see, as this page is flat, I've got more control over where the watercolour is going. But I'm really happy with that. I quite like the fact that it's running off in different directions. I think it's given it a really lovely kind of playful feel to it. So I'm just looking at it now, deciding whether I want to add any other little drops in or control where it's going at all. Because now that first layer started to dry a little bit more, I've got a bit more control. And some of this I think I'm actually going to lift off. So I'm going to use a dry brush and just pull some of that upwards. It's still wet, so some of it's going to go back in there, but it's just giving it a tiny little bit more control. And I think with this one, I might just add tiny bit more around this side. And now I'm going to move that to one side and mix up some green for our grass. The paintbrushes that I'm using are a Skoda brand. I get on really well with these brushes. I've had them for a long time, but any kind of watercolour brushes is fine. That's possibly a slightly darker green than I want, so I think I'm going to add just a little bit of a lighter shade in there with it as well. That's looking good, and because none of my grass is touching the wetness that I've got on those flowers, I'm going to be fine to add this well before drying off my page. So for the grass I'm using a size 4 brush. I used a size 8 brush before. I'm not worried about this being precisely in between the lines at all. As always, if you do decide to create anything that you've seen in this video, please do tag me in on Instagram. I'm at Journal with Purpose over there. Just makes me so happy seeing the different pages that you're all creating. I think it's wonderful. And I'm hoping to just film more and more kind of tutorials like this, just to give you a bit of confidence to get started. Okay, so we're nearly there with this stage of the paint. I'm going to add some green onto the stems of the other flowers and probably another detail, but I'm going to need it to be dry for that. So I have a heat tool by my desk, but you could use something like a hairdryer, or you can just be more patient than me and wait for it to dry naturally. Right, I'm just going to give this all a very quick dry. Right, I'm now going to finish off these flowers by putting a darker blue around the outside. And I've made sure that this is entirely dry first, because this dark blue is going to be quite dominant. The worry was if I put it on and allowed the wet on wet technique, it would have just swamped the whole flower. So I'm going to mix up some of this darker blue. And you could do the same sort of thing, shading with pens or pencils, using brush pens to create a kind of watercolour effect. But I love using watercolour in my journals, and I always think it's quite unpredictable, and that's one of the things that I absolutely love about it. So now that I've got this deeper blue, I know that I'm going to be able to use it and not worry about it running into here. I'm just adding kind of lots of little strokes. I'm going a little bit around the seed heads because it's quite a dark colour. I don't want to lose all of that detail. But I do just want to kind of give the feeling that these are lovely, soft, kind of fluffy flowers. I love adding kind of anything whimsical and fun into my journals. And I like doing some more kind of detailed line drawing to do more accurate flowers, and I do some tutorials with those over on Patreon sometimes, and I may well do that in one of the videos as well. But a lot of the time, if I just want to relax, then just playing with something like this is just perfect for me. Okay, so we've got that lovely soft kind of outer ring now. I'm going to do exactly the same with the other two flowers. Okay, I'm now going to add a really pale and kind of watery green along the bottom. So I just want kind of a wash really. So I'm putting some green in the palette, but I'm going to also mix up with lots and lots of water, because I just want to have that kind of hint of greenness there. And I'm just going to bring that up kind of to the edge of these stems here. So again, nothing precise. I just really want a hint of this green along the bottom. So a little bit goes a long way. I'm dipping it in and then just spreading it kind of as far as I can. And then I will dry that off quickly before adding a deeper green to the stems for the flowers. So really just a loose hint of the green here. I find these so relaxing to do. I didn't have a good night's sleep last night. I feel like I'm saying this all the time at the moment, but little dog Barney wasn't so well during the night, so I knew I wanted something to really relax me this morning. But they're nice and easy to do, allowed me to just play a little bit, not worry too much about the results, and just kind of lose myself in the process of adding lots of lines, inking and watercolour. Right, I'm just going to give all of this just a really quick dry off before adding the green to the stems. Okay, so I'm not going to need much paint for these at all. I'm just popping, mixing that again with just a little bit of water. And I'm going to get this as fine as I can, but again, I'm not going to worry too much about anything being precise. I'm just bringing those right up into the centre of the flower. And then the very, very final thing I'm going to do, it's one of my favourite things to do when I've got spare paint left in my palette. So put a nice wet brush in. I'm just going to add some little splashes over my page. So I've added the light blue, and I think I'm going to add some of that turquoisey colour as well. For me, it just kind of adds a little bit more to that whimsical effect. So whilst I was drying that off, I also lifted up some of the paint by just blotting it with a tissue to soften it and smudge it a little bit more as well. And I've decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quote on this page, and then I'll have this page free to add my journal writing. And the quote that I'm going to add is "Where flowers bloom, so does hope" by Lady Bird Johnson. And I'm going to use a Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen with a firm nib. So that is my quote now added. And I thought it'd be really nice to add a little butterfly sticker. And I want to get one in blue to tie in with the rest of the colours. Perhaps just to pop that along the side there. And these are transparent stickers, and again they're from London Gifties. And now I'm just going to add my journal writing on this side, and for that I'm going to use a black Muji gel pen. Okay, so that's my journal pages completely finished. I've just added a bit of writing about how I'm feeling today and what kind of things I'm looking forward to throughout the rest of the month of February. I really hope you've enjoyed seeing these kind of whimsical flowers all come together, and I hope you're doing well. As always, a massive thank you to everybody who's joined me over on Patreon. Thank you ever so much for watching. I look forward to speaking with you really soon in my next video.